In this battle, we are facing Haupeyz. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. However, they did reach out to me on Discord, and if any of you viewers would like to battle me, you could easily do that. Just DM me on Discord, and we could definitely sort something out if you are playing the same remake. So, anyways, you can see that this guy actually has a really good team here. It's got Heatran, which has me scared. I hate seeing that because it's so good. And the rest of his team really is actually pretty unique. First time I've ever seen a Gardevoir in a higher level team. He has a Slowking too, an Arctowish, which I've never really seen, and a Lowland Ninetales, which was a lot more common in the original game of Pokemon Brick Bronze. However, not as much in the remake. So this is definitely going to be a treat. So anyways, I decided to leave it Magnezone, and he decides to lead with his Ninetales. And one more thing I noticed, which I did not mention right here, was that I saw that this guy has like a full team of Pokemon, but none of them are actually ground type, or I don't think any of them have like an electric immunity, so I can freely spam Volt Switch. Now you might say, why don't you go for Flash Cannon there? And truth be told, I wasn't expecting him to actually stay in, although he actually does. So I think he might have not been aware I might have had a Choice Scarf, so he might have expected to be able to set up that Aurora Wheel and then be able to take in the Flash Cannon, which really isn't, a bad strategy. But I was expecting to switch out. So I was like, there's no way on earth that he's gonna stay in on that Magnezone, but he does. And it's not a big issue, because although he got the Aurora Wheel set up, I don't think it's gonna cost us too much. So anyways, I go into Heatran here, and I'm gonna fire off an Earth Puffer because I'm expecting the Heatran. So he ends up going into Slowking instead, and that's alright, because for me, I'm just trying to see him waste turns of the Aurora Whale. So I can afford to kind of stay in. Although one thing I did realize in this battle is how scary Slowking actually is, because I don't really have a Pokemon designated to sponge in special hits here. Like if I had Chansey, Slowking wouldn't be an issue, although I don't have a Chansey in this team. So I gotta figure out how I want to work around this. And although Tangrowth might be the obvious pick in a sense, this Tangrowth is a really physically defensive one. Now I might switch this out later to be more specially defensive. However, I've noticed the physically defensive one to be more useful for shutting down sweepers, which are a lot more common than Pokemon like Slowking. So it's kind of like a 50-50 on how you want to run Tangrowth. So anyways, I figured I should go in here because I don't think he's going to go for a Fire Blast just like that against the Heatran. So that's that. And I definitely need to get a Sleep Powder off, because I don't want this guy to fire off a Fire Blast or an Ice Beam. So because this Tangrowth doesn't have that much specially defensive investment, so it's not going to really want to take one of those in. So anyways, we are able to administer the Sleep Powder. Luckily we do outspeed, although I would be kind of embarrassed if we don't outspeed the Pokemon called Slowking. And I decided to just hit him with a knockoff, because we definitely want to nerf this as much as we can while he's immobilized. So the Future Sight actually lands and does incredibly high damage. I wasn't expecting that, but that's definitely not a good sign right there. So I definitely need to switch out here, because I'm not going to take in a Fire Blast or an Ice Beam after that one. And Tangrowth is definitely not a Pokemon I want to lose, because I know it's going to be so handy later on in the battle, especially against his physical attackers. So I'm going to go into Tapu Fini here, expecting the Fire Blast. Luckily he misses, so that's less damage on my Tapu Fini. And with Tapu Fini, it's ideal to try and preserve the HP as much as you can, because you don't have any recovery moves. So now I'm going to go for a taunt in case he has T-Wave, which he definitely apparently doesn't, and it does turn out to be useful here anyways, because he goes into Ninetales, probably trying to set up round 2 of Aurora Whale. So that's gonna limit him from being able to do anything really disturbing for us. So now I could switch out, although I don't really want to if I can help it. But Magnezone and Heatran could come in. I mean, it is tempting to stay in and just fire off for Nature's Madness to limit this guy's HP. However, I mean, I do have checks for this Ninetales, and I figured that if I can get this Magnezone in, then I can fire off a Volt Switch, especially if he goes at the Heatran, because if that Heatran has an Air Balloon, then I can remove it with the Volt Switch, and then Glasgow and Heatran can come in and check the opposing Heatran. So anyways, here I'm just gonna go right for a wall switch now that his Aurora Veil has worn off, because like I said, he doesn't really have a Pokemon that can sponge in any electric type attack, so I can spam it freely. He goes for an Ancient Pulver, which is not what I expected. However, it's good that he did that, because we basically get this Arctowish down to red HP. So now I can decide what I want to do, although ideally I need to make sure that I actually have speed here. So I do want to bring in the Beedrill if I get the opportunity, because Beedrill needs to Mega Evolve as early as it can so I can actually get its speed, and once I get the speed that I need, then I will be able to outspeed the rest of this guy's team. So if I can get Beedrill in, I definitely want to, and I figured that this would be a good opportunity. Now this guy revealed that this Arctowish is running Slush Rush, which means that it has like doubled speed in the hail, so it's actually really scary, especially with Fish's Rent. However, I don't think he has it available on this Arctowish just yet. So anyways, here I'm gonna go for a U-turn. Now I could have gone for a Pursuit to get the kill confirmed. However, I figured that I still kind of want to scout around and see what he's gonna do, because the Arctowish really isn't a problem I need to deal with right now, and getting a U-turn on something that can't resist it will be great, especially the Heatran if he has an air balloon, because then I can safely check that with Glasker. So anyways, now I've got the Beedrill Mega Evolved, and he ends up going into Slowking, which is more than perfect. I'm actually so happy I didn't go for the Pursuit there, because that was a KO on the Slowking, and the Slowking was going to be a big problem if I didn't get rid of it earlier. So that's going to be quite a relief for the rest of this battle, because now I don't have to worry about that guy, and I can now basically bring Heatran in. So that's going to be really, really nice. And the hail isn't really a problem because of leftovers. I mean, I could switch that out to Air Balloon later on if I really need that to take care of Heatran. However, I do have Glassgar and Tapu Fini and my own Heatran that can work together in tandem to check Heatran. Although it's not like a definitive check, whereas with Air Balloon you can basically shut down all kinds of Heatran, so it's kind of like what you prefer. But I'm pretty sure that this should suffice right here. So he ends up going into his Heatran, and it does actually have an Air Balloon, which is probably the recommended set, because then you can use it to check other Heatrans, and that makes sense because that will solve quite a big problem for a lot of teams. Because I mean, in this meta specifically, in this specific Brick Bronze copy where Heatrans are everywhere, you definitely want to have your own check to it so that you can actually withstand its Magma Storm Earth Power Toxic combination. So anyways, here he goes for an Earth Power. Good thing I went into Tapu Fini here, and now I'm planning to just fire off a Nature's Madness, because I know for sure he's gonna switch out here, and he ends up going into Ninetales, which is not that bad because Ninetales here is not gonna like this Nature's Madness, so that's gonna do some really sweet damage. And now I figured that I should just go for a Moon Blast, because I can probably bring this down to 2-hit, and basically he wouldn't be able to switch in anymore once I bring him down low enough with this Moon Blast. Although I'm not going to be able to KO him this turn, because he's probably just going to go for another Aurora Veil to get off one last setup. So I'm just going to go for a Moon Blast anyways, because I know it's going to be a 2-hit KO here, and that's going to be pretty nice. So the Moon Blast is deployed. Of course, it's not going to KO. He actually takes that in really good though. I did not know that Ninetales could tank hits that well. Although Tapu Fini isn't also known to be much of an offensive Pokemon at the same time. So anyways, now I want to go for a Nature's Madness in case he goes into his Heatran, because that will ensure I do big damage, and that will also pop his Air Balloon. So that will basically neutralize the Heatran for now. So anyways though, he actually surprises me here, because he ends up going for an Encore. So I guess he was willing to sacrifice his Ninetales here so that he can bring in his Heatran for free, which is fine, because I mean, I guess that makes sense, because it's better to lose a Ninetales and take big damage on Heatran, especially seeing that Heatran is going to be so deadly at this stage in the game while it has its Air Balloon. So now he ends up going into Dragonite, and this is definitely scary, because Dragonite can set up and Terra True teams. if you're not careful. However, since I've used Dragonites many times in the past before, it was one of my first sweepers alongside old Corona, I know exactly what to expect. Now, I always ran a Life Orb set because I didn't want to have to rely on weakness policy, but I know for sure that this guy has multi-scale weakness policy, and I mean, now because of the hail, it's going to be kind of like limited a bit, but he's basically gonna actually have a resistance to my Moonblast with the Aurora Veil and the multi-scale setup. And if I go for a Moonblast, then he's gonna boost his stats massively, and we definitely don't need this Dragonite running around at like +3. So anyways, here I go into Tangrowth at the start just to fish out what he's gonna go for, because I know for sure that he's not gonna attack in the first turn. He's definitely gonna go for a Dragon Dance, hoping for me to go for a Moonblast. And then I went into Heatran, expecting an Outrage, but he actually goes for a Dragon Claw, which is a lot more safer for me. It's a lot more of a riskier move for the Dragonite user. However, against a team like this, pure firepower is going to be incredibly important, because you won't be able to break through true Tangrowth with just a Dragon Claw. You're going to need Outrage for that. So anyways, now, you know, he goes for an Earthquake. I was expecting that, so I need to make sure that he actually has that before I take any more risk. And I figured that Tangrowth can now go for a Sleep Powder. And the good thing is this lands, because sometimes I have the worst luck with Sleep Powder. However, in this game, it definitely was really good. And that definitely went a long way, because now this Dragonite has basically been shut down to an extent. And now I'm definitely going to want to have to go for a knockoff, so I can actually hit him super effectively without, you know, having to risk getting completely swept. So that's exactly what I'm going to do right here. Now, I could also go for some, I think that was like Rock Tomb. Although, I don't think Rock Tomb is really a great idea, because he's already at +2. And at +1, he's basically going to be able to outspeed my whole team. So I figured that, you know, now's the time to bring in Tapu Fini. And he ends up actually staying asleep that turn, which is fine, because I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have just gone for a Dragon Claw if he woke up. So I probably would have just been immune to it, although I don't know. So anyways, now I'm going to fire off a Moonblast because he doesn't resist it, and the Aurora Veil isn't up anymore. And he ends up sacrificing the Arcto Wish, which is fine. I mean, I couldn't have taken this out with Beedrill and Pursuits. However, you know, that's also going to be just good, because, I mean, like, I don't know. I don't really want to have to deal with that. Although, it's not really a big problem, because as he revealed, his Ancient Power barely did any damage to me on the earlier turns. So now he goes into his Gardevoir, which is most definitely his Mega Pokemon. So I know for sure he has a Mega, and none of his other Pokemon were capable of Mega Evolving, from what I remember. And you know, this is definitely scary, because he's been saving this. Like, his Dragonite and his Gardevoir are probably his late game cleaners. So, you know, I decided to just go for a Taunt here, because what I'm worried about is him going for Calm Mind or Substitute. I want to shut that down before it happens. Now, if he goes for a Hyper Voice, it's not too big an issue, because now I can just switch into Heatran, who should resist both of his stab attacks. Although, you know, he actually does have a coverage move I wasn't fully expecting, probably because I wasn't actually looking at Smogon, which is what I should have done. But, you know, I didn't, because I got lazy. I got a bit too confident here. So anyways, I fire out the Taunt, and he goes for the Hyper Voice, which actually does really big damage in a Tapu Fini. Not something I like to do ideally, because I do want to keep my Tapu Fini at high HP if I can help it. Although it is what it is, it's definitely worth scouting out to see what this Gardevoir has to offer. So now, you know, I got Heatran in, and it's partly also a test just to see what he has. I don't really think that Gardevoir is ever going to run Hidden Power Ground. I've never seen that before, never heard of that. Although that could also be possible, because a lot of the Pokemon in the meta have, you know, Hidden Power Ground, or like Hidden Power Water, or even like Heatran running Air Balloon, just so they can actually check other Heatrans. So anyways, here I decided to just go into Magnezone, because I was expecting him to actually switch out. And if he didn't switch out, I figured it'd be fine, because I wasn't too scared of Hyper Voice or, you know, Psyshock or whatever he was going to fire off. And I was thinking, well, if he goes into Heatran here, then I can just Volt Switch and break his Air Balloon, and then go back into my own Heatran, or even Glasgow, so I can fire off an Earthquake. And that really was my grand plan here, so I can shut down this Heatran once and for all. And once this Heatran is shut down, all he's going to have left is Gardevoir and Dragonite, each of which could be shut down by Mega Beedrill, or even my own Magnezone. Like, I have many ways I can shut those Pokemon down. although Heatran is a bit of a different case because of how offensively potent it can be once it comes in. So anyways, I pull out the Gliscor. He goes for an Herb Hover, which is great because I was actually expecting him to go for a Magma Storm. So I guess he was predicting me to go into Heatran on the Switch. So anyways, now I can definitely go for an Earthquake here because you know, I don't think he really wants to switch anything else into this other than Dragonite, and Dragonite wouldn't want to have to take a Facade in. So anyways, he actually stays in. Surprisingly, he outspeeds me, so he must have had a lot of speed investment on this Heatran, and we are able to take care of Heatran. So now all he has left is going to be the Gardevoir and the Dragonite. So, you know, I could stay in here and sponge in a Hyper Voice. However, I'm looking for that clean sheet now that I still have 6 Pokemon alive. And, you know, I know for sure I can deal with these Pokemon if I can get Beedrill in. So anyways, Heatran comes in, and what I was actually thinking was that he might not actually have, you know, a sufficient way to check this. Although he actually ends up having Focus Blast on the Gardevoir, and that was completely unexpected but incredibly dangerous because it does huge damage. Now the good thing is Heatran has a lot of special defense, so it's able to take that in and survive. Although that is still a lot of damage right there, especially considering that this is a Heatran. Like, that is impressive. You don't really see that every day. So Gardevoir is definitely a Pokemon I'd like to see a lot more in the meta because it's actually really powerful. So anyways, now I had to decide what I'm going to do. He's probably going to go for Hyper Voice or Focus Blast. Those are his 2 options. And Beedrill actually has a useful resistance. So I figured now is the time to bring in Beedrill. Now you could sacrifice the Heatran because Heatran has no other purpose in this game. Although I'm looking for that clean sheet. So I decided that now is the time to bring in the Beedrill and, you know, finish off this game. Because I know that his Gardevoir isn't going to outspeed the Beedrill here. And he decides to withdraw. He goes into Dragonite, which is fine because I'm guaranteed to outspeed this if he even survives. Although we get the critical hit, and that's nice. I mean, maybe if he had extreme speed, he could have shut this down, although I don't think he did. And now his last Pokemon left is Gardevoir, which is going to be finished off by my Mega Beedrill, which I have to say, in situations like this, Beedrill is basically unstoppable. So that right there is GG.